Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my vegan story. I'm going to be giving you all of the ins and outs of why I went vegan and what's happened since I've been vegan. So if this sounds like something that you guys are interested in, then just keep watching. So we're just going to go ahead and hop in and I'm going to start telling you guys about my life. Starting from when I was little, health history wise, I had very severe anxiety. It started about in preschool, and you can label it as like separation anxiety. I had trouble being away from my house, being away from my mom, that kind of thing, but it didn't really lessen at all as I got more acclimated to what school was like and everything. I hated school. I loved learning, but I hated school because I always felt so nervous. And then in 4th grade, I missed most of my 4th grade year. We had just gone to a new school. So I mean, it was situational as well, but it just heightened my general anxiety that I already had. So I had this extreme anxiety that I really didn't track down until I was in high school. And that's whenever I kind of confronted my parents. I'd been taking some psychology classes and I was like, okay, I can't keep living like this. Why haven't we addressed the elephant in the room that it's not just, we would go to the doctor and they'd say, oh, it's acid reflux, oh, it's all these other things. And so we would go and we'd have all these tests done, but I'm like, it's so clear to me, and it should have been so clear to a lot of the doctors, that I was just an anxious child. So that's whenever I started my journey of medication, to be more specific, antidepressants. And I'll get more into that later on in the video, but I'm just trying to set the stage for what my health history was like before and after I went vegan. So along with my anxiety, as a child, I also was very sick, like chronically ill. I was a carrier of strep. I was constantly in the doctor's office. I loved doctors because they were able to make me feel better. So I found comfort in them, and I found comfort in prescription drugs, which sounds very strange to say as a child, but I did because they made me feel better. And it ended up getting my tonsils out, but my sickness never lessened. It actually just kept getting worse. It started out with the strep throat thing, then I got my tonsils out, then it ended up being just sinus infections constantly. My allergies were horrible. I always had eczema, like rashes all over my body. We couldn't figure out what it was. I had doctors telling me that I was allergic to metal. So I did all of these things that probably made my childhood life way more traumatic than it needed to be. I literally had to put tape on my chairs in my classrooms, like where the metal was. So I had a special chair, and on the inside of my jeans, I always had to put tape on that little metal part, and it didn't really help that much. I just was very sensitive to everything in life, as it seemed. And so yeah, it got worse from having eczema, having strep, having severe allergies, to sinus infections, to pneumonia, to bronchitis, you name it, I had it. And then it finally built up to a point where I was in college. It was my sophomore year of college, I believe. I had gotten staph. Long story short, none of the doctors for some reason could figure out what it was. We insisted that it was staph, and then they insisted that it was a spider bite and all of these other things. And so 6 doctors later, I finally got diagnosed and got that out of my life. But what I'm trying to get you guys to realize is that I had a lifetime of sickness, and it just got so normal for me to take prescription drugs. So fast forward to college, after the staph infection, after I've been on antibiotic after antibiotic, and then being on my antidepressants, I was also on birth control. Now, I was on birth control because I had severe acne growing up. I remember using my first concealer in 3rd grade. I was going to a Valentine's Day party and I had a zit on my face, and that's just not really like common. So I just kind of grew up with like all of these medical ailments. It was just awful. So I finally had reached a point in my college career where I was just kind of like fed up with feeling so crappy all the time, for lack of better words. I felt miserable. And I had always had this inner desire, I'd say, to eat really healthy and to change my diet. I remember in high school, I had gone what we call pescatarian. I abstained from eating red meat, which is good. Red meat, clearly not the best thing for you, but little did I know, chicken and fish aren't great for you either. I can get into all of that in another video, but this is literally just like my experience. So I had done that in high school. I had gotten rid of red meat, wasn't really a red meat eater, and then it was about my sophomore year of high school, maybe junior year, that I changed to a vegetarian diet. which was good, but I ate a ton of cheese all the time. I mean, I was like addicted to cheese, which if you do any little bit of research, you'll see that cheese has a ton of what we call casomorphines, which quite literally, like morphine, you get addicted to, you get a high once you eat it. So I was addicted to cheese. And then I had gone on a trip to Italy, and during my Italy trip is whenever we went to a little cheese factory where they made Parmesan cheese, and whew, that was quite the experience in itself. And I'm sorry if I'm ruining the like cheese eating experience for you guys, but it just has to be said. It was like the absolute grossest experience I've ever had. We got out of the bus and it just instantly reeked. It smelled like straight up vomit. I mean, oh, it was bad. And then the closer you get to walking into the facility, it just gets worse. And once you walk in, the floor is just like covered in coagulated milk byproducts. It's just gross. It's literally like milky water all over the floor. And then they have like these really big tin like tub things. They were huge. There were like 6 men like around the perimeter of it, and they have like the cheesecloth and this huge just glob of coagulated milk, which would be cheese, and this huge thing of water and salt. They're just like sweating into it and like putting their hands in it, and it was not like a pretty process at all. It was very, I don't really know what I expected. It just was like pretty nasty. And then they show you how they mold the cheese. We all know cheese is mold and it's coagulated milk, and we've grown to just feel like that's like good and yummy, and sure, it tastes good because it has those casomorphines, which really get you addicted, but it's just kind of like a gross concept to me. I just started to kind of like realize how like strange and foreign it seemed to be like drinking milk and eating dairy byproducts. So after my trip from Italy, I had some situational things happen in my life that kind of triggered me, and I fell into a very, very deep depression that lasted about 2 years. And it was absolutely, I mean, if you've been depressed before, I feel like I really don't need to go into detail about it, but it was like the absolute lowest point in my life, and I got to a point where it affected every aspect of who I was. You know, I was Alyssa. I was this girl that was motivated. I was outgoing. I was friendly. I kept in contact with people. I gave advice. I was nurturing. I was loving. And then all of a sudden, I just became this void of a person. And having that kind of realization was just very hard for me to all of a sudden realize that like the Alyssa that I knew and the Alyssa that everyone else knew is not the Alyssa that I was. And I was scared that I was going to lose who I was to this disease. Like, I was so scared that I was just going to fall into this pit of depression and not be able to get out, because once you get into depression, you like, it's just like it doesn't really fully leave your life. It's like you'll have moments where it's gone and then it just comes back in full force, like harder and stronger than you had ever expected it to be before. And the idea of that was just terrifying. And then on top of that, I'd always had body image issues. I'll be the first one to tell you that when I was little, I had 2 dreams in life. One of them, at the core of it, was to be accepted. I always wanted to have a group of friends around me. I always wanted a boyfriend so that I could feel needed and beautiful and loved and worthy. Like, I felt like I needed all of those things. And then on top of that, I felt like I had to look a certain way. Like, I had to have clear skin, which is why I went to the dermatologist in the first place, to figure out what the heck is going to happen. We hit a point where it was Accutane or it was birth control. I took birth control. It cleared up my skin. But then after that, it was still like I never liked my body. And so I had always been looking for ways to lose weight. This is very triggering to think about, but whenever I was young, I want to say like between 6 and 8 years old, I had written in my journal, and I just discovered this again recently. It was a prayer, and I was like, Lord, please help me to get a boyfriend. And I'm 6. Like, you really don't need a boyfriend at 6, but I just really felt like I needed one. So I was always praying for a boyfriend. And then I was praying that I would lose weight. And for me, just thinking about like being a mom one day, like I really don't want that to be my 6-year-old's prayer. And it's not my mom's fault, it's not my parents' fault, that's a part of me, is what I'm trying to say. And it's something that still affects me now, obviously, but getting into it, once I got depressed, I let all of those things just build. And so my body image issue became like out of this world, hard to handle. It's like very weird saying these things on camera, but I'm trying to be as transparent as I possibly can for you guys, because that's like my mission, that's my goal, is to just be me. But whenever I was really depressed, I felt like I had no energy. I was sleeping all the time. I, was just so unmotivated, but I was so motivated to like be skinny. And I was like, how does one do this? Like, how do you do it when you're sleeping all the time and you don't have the energy to go to the gym? Like, how do you get skinny? Well, me being the genius that I was, I felt like the only answer to that was to take laxatives. So I took laxatives for like a solid semester of college, and it was horrible. I highly don't recommend it. It didn't work for me, by the way, but that's what I did. That was my method. And that's whenever I started to just realize that something was like very wrong. I was just letting all of these things, like these demons in my life, just like really get me down and affect me. So I started to watch YouTube videos, and I started to see people adopting a vegan lifestyle and how they were seeing all of their ailments improve. And I just got really obsessed with those kind of videos. So I just was watching them, and I was looking at how it was sustainable, how it would work for you. And then I started to kind of divert my attention from being depressed and lonely and upset to I was still that way for a while, but I tried to transition some of that energy into trying to nurture my body. Literally anything that I would put into my body, I just started to Google. I would look at all the nutrition facts, and that was so empowering for me to see I'm doing this for myself. I'm nurturing my body. Like, it was the only way that I knew how to love myself at that point. And that sounds very weird, considering I'm just saying that like I had eating disorder tendencies, and here I am like trying to cure it by eating. But it wasn't just like eating. It was changing my viewpoint on what I was eating. It was realizing that this is a form of loving yourself, that you have to nourish your body, you have to feed yourself to thrive. Like I just, it sounds like a no-brainer, but in this position that I was in, it was so important for me. I overnight was able to just stop buying cheese from the grocery store, just stop buying lunch meat, just don't get yogurt anymore. I mean, it was like such a simple fix, because if it wasn't in my fridge, I wouldn't eat it. And so I literally just stopped buying it and started to adopt a plant-based lifestyle. I tried to get as many nutrients into what I was eating as possible. And as soon as I did that, I started to notice things weren't getting better, which is not what you guys want to hear. I started to get severe bloating. Like, literally, I looked pregnant. And I knew that some of it was probably because of the fiber, and I was like, I'll get used to it, it'll be okay. But what was actually happening, and this is not like a plant-based diet's fault, but what was happening is my history of taking antibiotics, of really compromising my microbiome in my gut. And when you add in those high fiber, carbohydrate rich foods, it's actually feeding the bad bacteria that I had in my gut. And this probably won't happen for you guys, but I'm just being transparent, and this is what happened for me. What happens with a lot of people when they go vegan is they express some concern about bloating. So I just put it as to like, this is normal. But it's not normal for it to happen for like months on end. And that's what was happening for me. And in order to fix that, I did go to a natural doctor. He prescribed me with like 100 billion probiotics a day. So that was like, that's a ton of probiotics. It's like medical grade. And that's when I started to notice like taking that consistently, killing off the bad bacteria. Then I started to kind of normalize, and now I don't bloat at all. So that's just something to think about if you guys do take a lot of antibiotics. I'm trying to get rid of that notion that like when you first change your diet to being plant-based, within the first like 3 to 5 days, you're just gonna feel amazing. That didn't happen for me. It was definitely like something that I had to work towards, but it's something that I would absolutely never take back. I am so glad that I made that choice in my life, but I did have some issues that I had to deal with before I started to see some of the actual results. So now the phase 2 of me adopting a plant-based lifestyle and kind of rebalancing my system, I started to get rashes under my armpits. Which was very new for me. I've never had that happen before, but they were really severe to the point where I thought maybe it was candida. Like I thought maybe my gut was out of balance again, because I definitely had candida-like symptoms whenever I first transitioned, because that came with all of the bloating and stuff, but that had a lot to do with the fact that my gut was so out of balance. So I was like, oh, maybe my gut's out of balance again. And I did take some methods to kind of help that, so that really could have been part of the reason, but I think that it had to be like a detox symptom, because as I started to hit this point where I was starting to get this rash, that's whenever I finally started to see a change in my weight. And a lot of people, normal people, I feel like people who have a much better health history than I did, they lose weight like pretty much immediately and they maintain it pretty much immediately, and that didn't happen for me. It was taking forever, and I was like, maybe this thing doesn't work. And now I've started to lose that weight, but as I started to get into that phase, I'd say is how I want to explain it. So the first phase was like fixing my gut, and then the second phase was getting rid of like the fat cells, and in your fat cells is where all of the toxins are stored. And so as you start to burn off those cells, people will see acne, people will see rashes, that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I experienced. I got rashes, and if you watch other people's videos on transitioning to a vegan lifestyle, a lot of people will say that they had some detox symptoms, but I think like the sicker you were, the more symptoms you'll get, and this was just one of those for me. And that did finally clear up. I did finally get that out of my system. I didn't really do anything in particular to get rid of it. It just kind of took its time, and then finally it was done. So that's another thing that happened to me. But it was, this all sounds like I went vegan and everything got terrible. That's like not true at all. All of that was just a way to get all of these things that were just affecting me in a negative way out of my life. And I just started to feel so much more energized. I felt like I had a purpose again. I felt motivated. I started making YouTube videos. I was like, this is it. Like, this is it. I've always wanted to help people. I've always loved to give advice to people. And I feel like as you get older, unless you're a counselor, like your ability to really do that on an everyday basis is just so limited. And I was like, I want to give advice on like everything, things that I have personal experience doing. It's like, I just wanted to share my life with people, and now I get to do that. And it's just the coolest thing ever. And so I felt motivated for this. I haven't had to take naps. Like I used to have to take like 4-hour naps every day. I don't do that anymore. Like I feel good all the time, and I lost weight. My anxiety, depression, completely gone. I don't get breakouts like ever. I'm not on anything to clear up my skin. I don't do anything that's specific for acne, so there's nothing going on my face with that. I just eat a plant-based diet, and I literally get like 1 or 2 pimples every now and then, and whenever I get them it's weird, whereas like I used to just always have like 5 to 10 pimples at a time. But that's how it's been for me. That's like the health side of things. So where I'm at now, I feel great. And as I've finally gotten to this point and I went through all of that health stuff, it helped me obviously cure my depression, my acne, my eating disorder issues that I had. Like there's so many things that it helped. I just can't even, I feel like I'm not even like giving it justice right now. But once all of that was cleared up and I had the medical background on it, like I was like, yes, like this clearly helped me from a medical standpoint. Then I started to see the compassion side of things. I started to watch more videos like Cowspiracy and see how it affects the environment. And there's just like so many connectors for me now for like why I should be vegan, like why I shouldn't change my lifestyle. I don't want to change my lifestyle just because I know so much now about the industry and about, I mean, there's just so much that's like wrong in our world that it's just like, it's just crazy. Like educating yourself is so important, and this was such an empowering thing for me because I helped heal my body. That's like so empowering. I don't even know how to describe it in any other way than like I just feel so empowered that I made this change for myself, that I've made it for the animals, that I've made this change for the environment. I mean, it's just groundbreaking. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't think I left anything out. That's the nitty-gritty details of why I changed the way I ate and how it changed my life. So I hope you guys are all having a wonderful week. I can't wait to talk to you guys again soon. I hope you guys loved this video. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to put them down in the comments. I would love to be able to talk to you guys about it. And yeah, I will see you guys next week.